it is the first opportunity for the candidates who are seeking public office to give us details about themselves and to enable us determine whether they meet the criteria under the law, the qualifying criteria. And so, for instance, under the Constitution, a presidential or vice presidential nominee has to be at least 40 years old, be a registered voter, and they are required to swear a statutory declaration attesting to their eligibility. We have to ensure that they are not chiefs. They don't work with some public sector organizations which the Constitution regards as barring their eligibility. So when the nomination forms are presented to the Electoral Commission, we are obliged to receive them. And we're also obliged to check that the details that have been provided are accurate and that the candidates qualify in accordance with the law. So the nomination process is a very critical part of the electoral process. And the Electoral Commission has continually urged prospective candidates to take the process seriously. This year we started the process on the 8th of September, announcing that the forms are available the following week. We also announced the filing fees for presidential and parliamentary candidates. On the 23rd of September, we launched a publication called The Guide to Candidates and Their Agents, which was supposed to assist candidates in ensuring that they fill the forms properly and they provide accurate information to the Electoral Commission. On the 26th of September, again, we issued a press release reminding all candidates of their duty to take the nomination process seriously and to ensure that their forms comply with the requirements of the law. This year, on the 27th of September, there was a little hitch with the nomination process when we were served with an application for an injunction by a political party restraining the Commission from receiving the published filing fees. And so that delayed the receipt of the filing fees until today, when we could finally receive that. However, on the 29th and 30th of 2016, between the hours of 9 a.m. and 12 noon and 2 p.m. to 5 p.m., as required by law, we received the nominations presented by 17 presidential candidates or their reps, and also thousands of parliamentary candidates across the nation. Now, under the laws that regulate the submission process, candidates can submit before the 29th and 30th as announced. And the benefit of submitting early is that it gives the Commission the opportunity to go through your forms and point out any errors or omissions which are on the face of the document so that you can correct. Even for candidates who filed on the 29th, there were some that we saw obvious errors and we pointed it out to them, and so they corrected it and brought it before the 30th. There were candidates who presented their nominations without pictures, and we gave them time to go and produce it. The only requirement under the law is that these errors or omissions are corrected before the deadline for filing of nominations, which was the 30th of September at 5 p.m. So today, following the receipt of the filing fees and the submitted forms last week, the Commission is now in a position to declare which nominations have been accepted for the presidential elections, and I think subsequently at the constituencies will announce which ones have been received for the parliamentary candidates. Now, the key criteria for presidential candidates to meet are that the forms you submit must be signed by the candidate. The forms must also be signed by a total of 432 registered voters across the country, because you need 2 voters to sign in every administrative district. In addition, 1 voter cannot endorse more than 1 presidential candidate. In the event that a voter endorses more than 1, it disqualifies both candidates. You must also name who your vice president nominee is, and the vice president nominee must meet the constitutional requirements for the office of vice president. The forms must be properly filled and submitted to the returning officer in the case of presidential, the chair of the Electoral Commission, on or before the date appointed for the receipt of nominations. Your form should be submitted in quadruplicates. Your form should include a properly attested statutory declaration which states that the candidate is eligible for the office of president and has met all the requirements. You must also add 4 pictures in accordance with the dimensions and specifications in the law. And finally, you must pay your filing fees. Now, the Commission is obliged under law to disqualify a candidate if any one of these requirements are not met. The law does not give the Commission the discretion to determine which obligations can be waived and which ones cannot be waived. If a candidate does not meet one of those qualifications or criteria, the candidate stands disqualified. So, for instance, if your nomination form is not properly signed by the candidate, or the statutory declaration is not properly executed, or you do not present your filing fees in the mode or amount determined by the Commission, or you have less than 2 registered voters per district signing your nomination forms, or the proper details required for the registered voters in every district are not provided, or your designated vice president nominee does not meet the legal requirements of the office, in that case, the Commission is obliged to reject your nomination. So, following the receipt of forms last week and payment of fees, we are now in a position to announce to the public the candidates who met the criteria and the candidates who did not. The Commission has endorsed their forms accordingly following our decision this morning, and we have also sent letters to all the candidates affected. So we go. The first one, Dr. Hassan Ayariga of the All People's Congress. The Commission is unable to accept Dr. Ayariga's nomination for the following reasons. The candidate did not provide evidence on his declaration as to his hometown or his residence in the constituency for the period specified by law. Secondly, 2 of Dr. Ayariga's subscribers also subscribed for another presidential candidate. This is in breach of Regulation 7(4) of CI 94. Now, when 2 subscribers are disqualified, the implication is that Dr. Ayariga does not have the requisite number of subscribers under Regulation 7(2)(b) of CI 94. The details of the duplicate subscribers are as follows. Abaku Isifu, with voter ID number 2988006876 and polling station code J110202. These details will be made public. The second one is Abudu Ayuba on page 95 of Dr. Ayariga's forms with voter ID number 630-300-5554 and polling station code H200201. In addition, when you examine Dr. Ayariga's forms, the signatures of both voters are different on his nomination forms as against the other candidates who was endorsed as well. This raises questions as to the legitimacy of those signatures, and the Commission will be referring the matter of the possible forgeries of these signatures to the Ghana Police Service and the Attorney General for investigations and prosecution. We want to point out that making a false declaration on a statutory declaration is a criminal offense. Making a false declaration on forms for office or voting is a criminal offense. So is perjury, so is deceiving a public officer, and impersonation in respect of an election. The second candidate, Dr. Edward Nasigri Mahama of the PNC. The Commission is unable to accept Dr. Mahama's nomination for the following reasons. Many subscribers to Dr. Mahama's forms did not properly sign the forms. Thumbprints, signatures, or marks were omitted altogether. For instance, on pages 16, 24, 28, there were no signatures. 2 subscribers to Dr. Mahama's nominations also subscribed for another presidential candidate, Dr. Hassan Ayariga. These are, again, Abaku Isifu and Abudu Ayuba. We've provided their ID details already. As stated earlier, again, the signatures on the forms of these voters on Dr. Mahama's forms are different from the ones on Dr. Ayariga's forms. This again raises questions as to the legitimacy of those signatures, and we will be referring the matter of the possible forgeries of these signatures to the Ghana Police Service and the Attorney General for investigation and prosecution in line with the law. The third reason for rejecting Dr. Mahama's forms is that for a large majority of subscribers, the signature portion of their subscription was ticked rather than subscribed with a signature, a thumbprint, or a mark. It is important to point out that in law, a simple tick does not satisfy the requirements of the law where a mark is made in lieu of a signature or a thumbprint. A mark in law is an X made by a person who is illiterate or too weak to sign beside his or her full name. And according to the law dictionary, on the rare occasion that this occurs, the X should be within or next to a notation indicating the person's name or formally witnessed by another person to make the mark valid. We do not find the marks made on Dr. Mahama's forms valid. So in conclusion, Dr. Mahama does not have the requisite number of subscribers required under Regulation 7(2)(b) of CI 94, and his nomination cannot therefore be accepted by the Commission. Dr. Ejenim Boateng of the United Front Party. The Commission is unable to accept Dr. Boateng's nomination because a number of his subscribers do not meet the minimum required by under Regulation 7(2)(b) of CI 94. The details are as follows. One subscriber, Amadou Babia Latifa, with voter ID number 335-700-6984 and polling station code K100-401, supported the nomination of another candidate in addition to Dr. Ejenim Boateng. This is in breach of Regulation 7(4) of CI 94. Further, the subscriber has different signatures on both candidates' nominations, again raising questions as to the legitimacy of the signature on both forms. We will again refer the possible forgery of the signature to the Ghana Police Service and to the Attorney General for investigation and prosecution. In addition, 3 of Dr. Boateng's subscribers supported the nomination of yet another candidate, and again with different signatures. This again is in breach of Regulation 7(4) of CI 94. The details of the subscribers are Alfred Yevuglo on page 35 of his forms with voter ID number 127-001-3632 and polling station code D091201. The second is Raymond Dagadu, again on page 35 of the forms with voter ID number 127-001-2857 and polling station code D091201. And the third is Thomas Edu on page 67, voter ID number 37030131114 and polling station code F310202. Fourth candidate is Mr. Kofi Akpalu of the Independent People's Party. The Commission is unable to accept Mr. Akpalu's nomination because he did not meet the number of subscribers under the Regulation 7(2)(94). The details are as follows. 3 subscribers supported the nomination of another candidate. That should be Dr. Ejenim Boateng, in breach of Regulation 7(4) of CI 94. Again, the cross-subscribers have different signatures on the nomination forms of Mr. Akpalu as against the nomination forms of Dr. Ejenim Boateng, raising questions as to the legitimacy of the signatures. They are, as stated earlier, Alfred Yevuglo, Dagadu Raymond, and Edu Thomas. Same voter identity numbers as earlier said. We will again refer this to the Ghana Police Service and the Attorney General for investigation and prosecution in line with the law. The 5th candidate is Mr. Kwabna Ajay of the Reformed Patriotic Democrats. The Commission is unable to accept Mr. Ajay's nomination because the number of subscribers to his forms again did not meet the requirements of Regulation 7(2) of CI 94. The details are as follows. 2 subscribers to Mr. Ajay's forms are not registered voters. In fact, they are on the exclusion list for multiple registrations. The details are Mr. Stephen Owusu, who registered in 2012 with voter ID number 300-5586 and registered again in 2014 with voter ID number 14900-19583. And Fusheni Mariama, who registered with that name in April 2012, with voter ID number 264-300-5586, and she again registered in March 2012 as Mariama Abdullahi with voter ID number 14900-19583. Because they're on the multiple registration list, they are not valid voters, and so they could not legally endorse or subscribe to the forms of Mr. Kwabena Ajay, and so he stands disqualified. We will also call on the Ghana Police Service to investigate the named individuals for the electoral offense. The sixth candidate, Dr. Papa Kwesindu of the Progressive People's Party. The Commission is unable to accept Dr. Ndum's nomination because, again, the number of subscribers to his forms did not meet the requirements of Regulation 7.2 of CI 94. The details are as follows. One subscriber, Mr. Richard Asida, with voter ID number 781-200-3957, endorsed Dr. Ndum's forms in the Central Region, and again endorsed the same forms with the same ID number in the Volta region on pages 21 and 39 of Dr. Ndum's forms. The subscriber was found to be legitimately on the register of the Volta region, disqualifying him from being able to subscribe in the Central region as well. This reduced the total number of Dr. Ndum's subscribers to below the minimum required by law. The same subscriber, Mr. Richard Asida, endorsed the form with different signatures in both portions of the nomination form. This again raises questions as to the legitimacy of one or both signatures. The Commission again will refer the matter of the possible forgery of the signature or signatures to the Ghana Police Service and the Attorney General for investigation and prosecution in line with the Criminal Offences Act. The seventh candidate, Dr. Henry Herbert Lartey of the Great Consolidated Popular Party. The Commission again is unable to accept Dr. Lartey's nomination because a number of subscribers to his forms do not meet the requirements of Regulation 7.2b of CI 94. The details are as follows. Pages 18 to 22 of his forms do not contain any signatures of the subscribers as required by law. On pages 14 to 17, the subscriptions are undated. The personal records of the vice presidential candidate have not been provided. One subscriber, Amadou Babia Latifa, with voter ID number 335-700-6984 and polling station code K100-401 on page 1110 of Dr. Lartey's forms, also supported the nomination of another candidate. This disqualifies both candidates endorsed by the said voter. Further, the said subscriber has different signatures on both nomination forms, raising questions as to the legitimacy of both signatures. And again, the Commission will refer the matter of the possible forgeries of these signatures to the Ghana Police Service and the Attorney General for investigation and prosecution. Candidate number 8 is Mr. Richard Nixon Tete, also known as W.O. Tete, I believe, of the United Development Systems Party. The Commission is unable to accept Mr. Tete's nomination because the number of subscribers again to his forms did not meet the requirements of Regulation 7.2b of CI 94. The subscribers are required to be registered voters, and almost all subscribers to Mr. Tete's forms had non-existent voter ID numbers. In addition, the candidate also did not pay the filing fees within the stipulated timeline, and so he stands disqualified. Candidate number 9 is Mrs. Nana Konedu Ajiman Rawlings of the National Democratic Party. The Commission is unable to accept Mrs. Rawlings' nomination because the number of subscribers to her forms did not meet the requirements of Regulation 7.2b of CI 94. In this instance, one subscriber to her forms on page 89 is not a validly registered voter and illegally registered twice in 2012 and 2014, and is on the exclusion list of multiple voters. The details are Salifu Abdullahi of the Nanumba South District with voter ID number 6617004814, registered in March 2012, and voter ID number 212690022 when he registered in April of 2014 or August of 2014, and so she stands disqualified. Candidate number 10 is Mr. Thomas Nwako Wadru of the Democratic People's Party. Again, the Commission is unable to accept Mr. Wadru's nomination for the following reasons. Mr. Wadru's forms were not properly completed, and his candidate's particulars, which included his voter ID number, were not provided on page 1 of his forms, and so the Commission is unable to establish whether the candidate is a registered voter and therefore eligible for the office of President. His statutory declaration is not signed, and the candidate's details are missing from his declaration. However, the same statutory declaration has been signed by the Commissioner of Oaths, who should be authenticating the candidate's signature. This, in the view of the Commission, is illegal and unethical. The signature of his vice presidential candidate is missing. The voter ID number of his vice presidential candidate has not been provided, and again, we're unable to establish whether the vice presidential candidate is a registered voter and eligible to stand for office. The number of subscribers to Mr. Wadru's forms did not meet the requirements of Regulation 7(2)(b) of CI 94. For instance, pages 69, 70, and 71, there are no signatures. Signatures of 2 subscribers on pages 55 and 56, Isaac Dusi and Kofi Kuma, are identical, and this raises questions about the legitimacy of the 2 signatures. The same subscriber, Kumbun Dosetu, endorsed the nomination forms in 2 different districts, one in Laura and another in Nandong, with 2 different signatures on page 109, raising issues again on the legitimacy of both signatures. 2 subscribers subscribe in both Doma Municipal and Doma West districts on page 76, and their details are as follows. Ya Yebwa with voter 200-1504, and Anthony Buamwa with voter ID number 346-200-2159. The candidate has many undated endorsements. They are missing residential addresses on page 33. And interestingly, on the candidate's form, a large majority of subscribers use thumbprints and not signatures, and this included headmasters, teachers, researchers, and pastors. We're unable to understand why, and the ones we're unable to understand why these people, headmasters and teachers and students, could not sign the nomination forms. The candidate also did not sign, and for these reasons, we're unable to accept his nomination forms. The 11th candidate is Mr. Alfred Kwame Asiedu Walker, an independent candidate. Again, the Commission is unable to accept Mr. Walker's nominations for the following reasons. His forms were improperly filled and contained several irregularities. There are invalid endorsements and missing signatures on the forms from pages 82 to 84, page 99, and page 100. The personal records of his vice presidential candidate were not provided. The candidate's statutory declaration was not completed and not signed by the candidate. The candidate's voter ID number and polling station details were not provided. Same for his vice presidential candidate, and so we're unable to confirm their eligibility for the office. The consent to nomination was not signed by both the candidate and the vice presidential candidate, so we are even unable to confirm whether they actually want to stand for the office. And the vice presidential candidate did not sign the personal record form. And so for these reasons, we are unable to accept this nomination form. The 12th candidate, Madame Ekwadonko of the Ghana Freedom Party. Again, the Commission is unable to accept Madame Donko's forms for the following reasons. The form was not properly filled. The consent to candidacy by the candidate and the vice president nominee were not signed. Residential addresses and polling station details of several subscribers were not provided. forms on pages 48, 49, 50, all the way to 59. The candidate herself provided 3 different signatures on her forms. On the basis of the information provided to the Commission, the vice presidential candidate is not qualified for the office on the basis of age, because the date of birth given to us is October 15th, 1998, making her below the age for registration. And we may possibly have to call on the police to investigate the case of minor registration if the candidate is a valid voter. The candidate's statutory declaration was also incomplete, and so for these reasons we are unable to accept this nomination. Mr. Akwesi Adai Odike of the United Progressive Party. The Commission has been served with court processes challenging the membership and candidacy of Mr. Akwesi Adai Odike by some members of the United Progressive Party. The processes seek to restrain the Electoral Commission from issuing, accepting and registering Mr. Odike to contest the 2016 presidential election as a flag bearer of the UFP. The Commission is therefore unable to accept Mr. Odike's nomination forms until the matter in court has been concluded. We hope that Mr. Odike and the UFP would resolve the matter by October 14th, 2016, after which date the Commission would be unable to process his nomination. Finally, these are the nominations that have been accepted by the Electoral Commission as meeting the requirements of the law, and we'll announce it in the order in which their submissions were received. Nana Adodankwa Akufo-Addo of the New Patriotic Party, John Dramani Mahama of the National Democratic Congress, Ivor Kobina Greenstreet of the Convention People's Party, and Mr. Jacob Osei-Yeboah, an independent candidate. Thank you. Here we go. I don't think I should.
Thank you very much.
You give me 2 so that's